Well, hello. Now, hi, George. Um, so I see you're joined by Kevin McCarthy. That's nice to see the two of you not fighting for a change, and I'm always glad to have senior members of your party here visiting me and my little doggy Francois, who, for some reason, always says, I really like that George Santos. I like him almost as much as Donald Trump, and of course, he's a huge Donald Trump fan. So I point that out because some people say, "Oh, you're just a Democrat." Well, I'm a Democrat. I think fairly conservative in some respects, but I don't hide the fact that I'm certainly not a Republican. Have very little use for the party, but on a personal level, I'm always glad to see you in here, George, and you, Kevin, and it's and even every once in a while, your friend Donald Trump shows up. He refuses to be seen on camera with me. I don't get that, but he does stop by. He just lives down the road there in Mar-a-Lago. So and I have run into him from time to time. Of course, he doesn't remember. We were in our 20s back then. But anyway, be that as it may, I'm here to talk about the immigration issue, which I've discussed before, but I don't think I'm getting through because I don't see any change. But before I do, point of personal privilege, I've just got to say, that guy, Johnathon Turley, makes me want to strangle him. And I'm not normally a violent person. Okay, maybe I am a violent person. Or when I was younger, not now. Now I've mellowed. So, but I just read an article on that rag from New York, the New York Post, I think it's called. And it was just a horrendous, weird attempt to try to tie Joe Biden into the whatever shenanigans his good for nothing kid is up to. And it doesn't work. He didn't do it. But to people who want to believe that sort of thing, well, hey, that's fodder. So I'm thinking to myself, the way this guy writes and the way he talks, he can't be a trial lawyer. So I looked him up. I could find nothing, not one instance of a single case that this guy has actually tried. And I'm saying, well, that makes sense. And I'm going to say something. This is maybe a little bigotry on my part. But, most lawyers haven't tried cases. In my opinion, you can't be a real lawyer, in terms of a good lawyer, until you've actually gone into the pit and tried cases. And one of the reasons for that is not just that you need to know procedure and this, that, and the other, but you are forced to refine your analysis, to bringing in only admissible evidence, and the requirements for admissibility are quite strenuous. For example, you can't have hearsay. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, you can't have hearsay. You have to lay a foundation. I don't know how many lawyers I've seen just flounder in trying to present a case because they weren't experienced and they didn't realize they had to lay a foundation to put in key documents, and as a result, they didn't get those documents into evidence. So you have to know what you can bring in, what you can't bring in, what's necessary to prove your case, and what you have to keep out from the other side, and you have to be always vigilant to make sure that somebody doesn't try to sneak in something in the case that doesn't belong there. That forces you to become very, very precise in your thinking. And to be fully honest, there's a little slogan we have in the laws called the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The whole truth, meaning you don't put in words out of context, you don't put in snippets from a letter, you don't put in, this happened, but I'm going to leave out these facts because those facts don't support my case. For example, they had the Republicans brought in this fellow who has been a business partner of Hunter Biden in this Burisma company in Ukraine, and he testified to a lot. And I, didn't read all of it, but I know the main highlights. And he said things like, Hunter Biden and I, we got money from this, we got money from that, and we met with this, and Joe made it. We talked with the president, with We had business associates around, and Hunter would call his dad, and they'd talk for a couple of minutes. And oh yeah, how many times? 20 times. Oh, 20 times they talked. So this was what we heard from the Republicans. What you didn't hear from the Republicans was this guy went on to say the 20 times was over a 10-year period. They were just a few minutes, and they were nothing more than, "Hi, Dad, how are you? And this is a shame what's going on with my brother," and because that's when kid was going through cancer, and nothing of business. There were no discussions about anything having to do with business. There was also, this fellow testified, no payments to Joe Biden and no $5 million payment to Hunter Biden, but all that stuff is left out. And one of the reasons I mention that is I just read this article by Johnathon Turley in the New York Post rather, and sure enough, he left out all the stuff that maybe makes it look like Joe Biden really didn't do anything wrong. And he made a big deal about the fact, and Joe Biden sat down and had dinner with Hunter and some of Hunter's associates, including somebody who had recently received money from a Russian oligarch. Which means absolutely nothing. But Johnathon Turley, that was front and center, exhibit who knows what, exhibit for what purpose. Now, if he was in a courtroom and he tried getting by with something like that, the first thing he'd do is say, objection, lack of foundation and relevance. And the judge would say, well, Mr. Turley, why is that relevant? And he'd, well, it makes him look bad. So, well, that's not relevant. Relevance isn't something that makes somebody look bad. It has to be something which tends to prove an element in the case. What element are you trying to prove in this case with that evidence? Well, it makes him look bad. What element of what charge are you trying to present? He wouldn't have an answer. And the judge would not have allowed that testimony. And in fact, he would have admonished them in the strongest possible language. And you're going to see some real admonishments coming up in the Trump trial when he tries to pull his nonsense, because these judges aren't going to put up with it. So, this is the kind of stuff that Turley does. Stuff he could never get away with in a court of law. Now, I don't know if that's just because he's ignorant as dirt and never tried a case. And I hate it when they say, well, he's a legal scholar. Well, that's not my definition of a legal scholar. A legal scholar is somebody who should also have, as a lawyer, real-world experience. Not just stuff you learn from textbooks, but stuff where you've had to get out there and hone your thinking. Hone your thinking. I don't think he's capable of honing his thinking. But even if he is capable of honing his thinking, and he's pulling the crap that he pulled and other things of his I've read and testimony I've seen him give in Congress, if he knows better, then he's not stupid. He's intellectually dishonest, which is the worst kind of dishonesty there is. So that's enough of that. I'm not going to scream and shout about Johnathon Turley anymore, and I apologize for doing that. I want to talk about immigration. And this is the part that drives me crazy. One of the things I try to do in these podcasts, for those of you who may watch, is to give you some insight that you may not get from watching the mainstream media. By mainstream media, I'm also including Fox News. I'm also including MSNBC, CNN, and all of these things you're going to get on the internet. That's all mainstream media. To me, it's media. And one of the main things that the media has in common that drives me crazy is most of the people standing up there talking like they were weazened scholars, like Johnathon Turley, they have no background in the subject matters about which they're speaking. And the one that drives me craziest is immigration. Now, how many times have you heard people, of course, particularly Fox News, and my complaint with the others is they don't respond to what they say on Fox News, talking about the problem with the massive influx of these illegals at the border. And now they're taking these illegals at the border, and good for the governor of Texas and good for the governor of wherever, and they're sending these people from Florida, sending these people to New York City, and they can deal with these illegal immigrants. So what's the problem with that? What's the fundamental lie that I just spoke? No, not that, George. Jesus. You lie about your age too. You just say you're older. I say I'm younger. When we meet somewhere in between, stop bringing that up. This is not good form. The fundamental lie is that all of these people that are flooding the border towns and are now being shipped off to Martha's Vineyard in New York City. Mainly New York City's having a huge problem with them. They're not illegals. I'm going to say it again, and this time, because I've had this before and nobody listens, I want you to listen. And this actually may be a podcast that should be of some importance. If you know anybody, you can talk to anybody. If you have friends, if you have acquaintances, tell them to contact somebody, to contact the representatives of both parties. In the House of Representatives, I'm talking about right now, not the Senate. Forget the Senate. We can get to that later. In the House of Representatives, contact them and tell them to stop this crap right now. Now, what do I mean by that? They're here legally. Did you hear what I said? These are not people, they're swimming across the Rio Grande and getting themselves tangled up in these floats with the bandsaws, and that's just hideous what they're doing there. But those are not the problem. The number of those people coming over illegally is dropped dramatically, and I don't think it's because of the floats in the Rio Grande. It's because they don't need to. They don't need to come over here illegally. They can come here perfectly legally. And that's what they're doing. So the people that are flooding the border towns, and they are causing a mess, there's no doubt about that, and now causing a huge mess up in New York City, and they're causing a huge mess wherever they're sending them, because they're coming in here by the thousands. Legally! Now, how many times have you heard anybody on Fox News or MSN, and I watch all these shows in the mornings because it's either that or do this show or worse, work. So I try to avoid all three of those as much as I can by watching these stupid shows on TV. Eventually, I have to go back to work. I don't have to, but I'm still taking cases. Ironically, I'm working on some immigration cases right now. So I know from my own work in immigration that the people that are coming over here that are causing all of these problems, and some of them are behavioral problems on the part of the people coming over. Some of them there's just too many of them. Another problem is many of them would like to go to work, but they can't because there's no provision for them to have green cards or even temporary permits. That's all tied up. All of these are problems in Congress, but what's the fundamental problem, which is the fundamental legal problem? By legal, I mean with our statutes. It's causing all of these people to come over here legally. It's asylum. No, not insane asylum, George. Stop it already. I'm sorry about that, okay? It was a misunderstanding. Asylum. What asylum means is they come over here legally, and the asylum laws, and I've written several briefs on the asylum laws, and actually tried some asylum cases, unlike Johnathon Turley, is that the asylum statute requires, doesn't allow, requires that if you're going to seek asylum in the United States, you have to be in the United States or a port of entry like an airport. You have to be here. And if you are here, you can legally apply for asylum. You don't have to swim across the Rio Grande. You can walk right across any place, turn yourselves over, you can come right through the border crossings and say, I'm here seeking asylum. Then they give you a brief interview. And not an in-depth, and if you answer the questions with, Johnathon Turley could pass that exam. So easy. So, I hope he doesn't see this. Probably a nice guy. He's going to come over here and shoot me. So, but anyway, that's not a suggestion. George, don't you, get off the phone, George. I mean, right now. I mean it. You're a guest in my house. I see you're dialing. I know you have Johnathon on speed dial. Do not call and suggest. Don't tell him I suggest you come over here and shoot me. Okay? It's not a good thing to do. It's bad form. Bad form. Everything around here is, well, there's a question of form. Right? Right. Yes. And guess who's coming over later to see you? That's right. Donald Trump. We won't have to let anybody know that, okay? That's just between us, but I thought you'd be happy to know that. That's a surprise I was keeping for you. He's on his way over here right now, even as we speak. So, as soon as he gets out of jail, he'll be coming up here. That's right. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. So, they're here, they're required to come here and apply for asylum. So they come here, they say, I'm applying for asylum. I am a political refugee. I'm coming up here from Guatemala for whatever reason. And they say, okay, well, you checked all the boxes, so okay, you're here in the States, you checked all the boxes. We're going to give you a hearing date, tell us how to reach you, and then they give them and then they say, we'll contact you and let you know when your asylum case is to be heard. Now, these people don't disappear. That's not true. You hear that all the time. They don't just disappear. They don't wear ankle bracelets either. Most of them already have contacts and family or whatever in the States. So many of them do. Many of the ones that are homeless and sleeping, they don't. But whether they do or not, they're allowed to stay here. They're entitled to stay here until they have a hearing, and which can take 5 years. So in the meantime, they're here, and they're here legally. They're asylum seekers. That was never the intent of the asylum laws. But what do? Why do they have this requirement that you have to come to the United States to seek asylum? The UN asylum, whatever they call it, resolution, which was the basis for these asylum laws all over the world, it doesn't say anything about people having to set foot and be in somebody else's country at the time. We did that, and the reason we did that was we thought it would discourage people from seeking asylum who didn't really need it, because it was too difficult for these people to come all the way through wherever they're coming from to get to the United States to seek asylum. So that would discourage people who didn't have really legitimate claims. They didn't count on los coyotes. Right? Los coyotes saw an opportunity to make a lot of money, so they say, hey, come on in, hop in the van. Once we get you there, you just say you're there for asylum, and they got to let you in, and they're right. And so that's what's causing the problem. Now, everybody knows that. But, you don't know it. You know it now. But in Washington, they know it. You don't tell me these members of the House and the Senate, Democrat and Republicans, don't know this. They know it, but they refuse to do anything about it. The Republicans won't do anything about it because they want a campaign issue. They want this chaos at the border, just like they're rooting for the economy to collapse. They're always about power, and it's always about politics. Whatever's going to win for them, that's what they want. They want this. Donald Trump was elected president. He had a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. Did you hear Donald Trump introduce any legislation to eliminate that requirement? All you have to do is say, if you want to apply for asylum in the United States, you can't do it in the United States. Not you must, but you can't. You're going to have to go to an embassy, just like you do for other things, which are, all kinds of relief. Immigration relief is obtained through interviews in embassies of the countries where we have embassies. We used to, for example, have handled cases with people in Cuba where they couldn't because we don't have an embassy there anymore. So then they have to go to other islands and other countries. But they still have to go to U.S. Embassy for screening, for interviews, for health screening, everything before they can be admitted under different statutes. We could do that same thing for asylum. So if you want asylum, and say you're Cuba and you want asylum, you have to go to Colombia and to the embassy, the U.S. Embassy there. We'll set up staff there to take these cases and process these cases. And then, if they think that you met the basic requirement, then you go back to where you came from and you wait your hearing date in the United States. Now, they have to have exceptions, so there are going to be people that, if they do go back, they're going to be assassinated. If you have things like that, you have exceptions. You have exceptions. Hello, it's not that hard to put exceptions into a statute. Any statute, if you've ever read one, Johnathon Turley, they're filled with exceptions. So make exceptions there. But make the fundamental rule that you can't come to the United States and seek asylum. What does that do? That immediately stops this influx of thousands of people coming across the border and saying, here I am, I'm seeking asylum. Now you figure out what to do with me. I don't care what you do. Keep me here in El Paso, send me to Nueva York, whatever you want to do, but I'm here and now I'm your problem. So, why didn't Trump introduce legislation to do that when he was president, at least in the first 2 years? Why has the Republican House never done it? They're not doing it today. They just want what they, you know what these Republicans, grandstanding Republicans do. And if you're inclined to support Republicans, you got to watch these people someday. They stand up there and they talk about, well, these illegal immigrants, and they're coming over there to the border, and then and then the illegal are being sent to sanctuary cities, which serves them right. Illegal immigrants, illegal. But they're not illegal, and you know they're not illegal. So they're lying through their teeth. So tell these people, if you have any friends. You don't, or you wouldn't be watching this, but you might know somebody who has friends. Tell them, write to your Congress. They actually pay attention when they get letters. Send emails, send letters, make telephone calls, get people to call these people and say, do something about the asylum laws so you're not dragging people into this country and then complaining that they're here. I hate to get excited about this stuff, but it's so frustrating when I know, because I do this work, that the solution, at least the short-term solution to stopping this massive influx of people coming in here that we can't handle, it's a problem. And of course, I blame the Biden administration too. Why doesn't Biden come out and propose that? Because he doesn't want to upset the immigrant community. What he doesn't understand, I don't think, is that a lot of the South American immigrants that came here legally get pretty frustrated with people who come here and try to game the system. So, but of course, when they have family, they look at it differently. But there's a whole separate thing for people who actually have families, for people who have money, for people who can come in and start businesses. There's all kinds of exceptions and loopholes, and those are good. And we should have them. But the fundamental problem is requiring people to come here to seek asylum, and then they do, and then we're stuck with them. So why don't you Republicans introduce a bill to change the law? Biden, why don't you submit a bill and put the Republicans on the spot to change the bill? The Senate, why don't you people get together? I know Mitch McConnell can't because he's bedridden, but if he ever, gets younger again, he could get together with Schumer, and who's no spring chicken himself, and you guys put a bill together for that. You can do this together because it's a bipartisan problem and it could easily be solved with bipartisan efforts, but none of you want to do it because of your own political reasons, and that's wrong. But people, you can change that. You can change it. So this time I'm actually praying that somebody watches this thing and goes out and does something about it. Okay? Now, I'm sorry to get all mad at you. No, not you, George. I'm always glad to be mad at you. You deserve it. But I'm talking about the nice people who watch maybe nice people's going a little too far. But not terribly horrible people who watch this program. Now, I'm just digging myself in a little bit too deeper. I'm going to get out of here. I am. No, I am. See me looking? I'm looking at, where can I go? How can I get out?